Welcome to the Stochastic MLB Strategy Show. I'm your host, Neil Orfield. You can find me on Twitter at PlayerQDFS. I'm here with Adam Scherer. You can find him on Twitter at ShitMyMoneyDFS. And this show is sponsored by SoRare MLB. Great product, great way to play fantasy sports. We will talk about SoRare. I'm actually going to share my screen with you, show you some of the cards that I've bought for the next slate for the SoRare MLB season. I think that I have some takes on who I want to be buying for this SoRare MLB season. Pretty excited about some of the cards that I have bought. Excited to be here with you. Adam, we had a 12-game live before lock yesterday. It was a little bit like we need to get through this quickly before lock. Today we've got 5 games, and it's a strategy show. Much less intense today.
Yeah, much different than yesterday. But yesterday was fun. I had a solid day. Profited baseball, profited basketball, profited using Odd Shopper to bet sports, mostly hockey. So yeah, it was a fun day. I wish all days were like that.
Me too. I wish all days were profitable.
Yeah,
that is a lot more fun. We do also have an early 2-game slate, which I know you probably have not prepared much for this 2-game slate. Do you have any thoughts on? So we have Nestor Cortez is 10,300. Then we have Kenta Maeda against Boston. So it's Cortez facing the Angels. On the other side of that game, we have Patrick Sandoval, of course, facing the Yankees. And then we've got Boston versus Minnesota with Tanner Houck for the Red Sox, Kenta Maeda for the Twins. Any idea how you would be approaching this slate if you were playing? I know that you don't play these 2-game slates, so you probably have not looked at it.
I actually am playing. I registered today.
Oh, you are? Are you playing? Are you playing GPPs or just cash?
Just cash.
Okay.
So I assume I'm just entering a bunch of stuff and then getting my money directly back because I chop with everybody. But yeah, but it's actually an interesting 2-gamer. And in tournaments, I think it's going to just be one where you probably don't really feel good about whatever lineups you make because there's not a single pitcher pitching that is bad. They're all pulling on DraftKings between 34 and 69% ownership. So this is a weird 2-gamer. Normally you get at least like one pitcher that's bad and you get a strategy decision where it's like, well, do I stack against the obvious bad pitcher just like everybody else, or do I go against good pitching? Here you kind of don't have a choice. Like Tanner Houck's probably the worst pitcher of the 4, but he's still really good. So yeah, it's, I think, kind of just ownership always matters a ton, especially in baseball, but even more so, I think, on a slate like this where there's just not obvious pitching to target. We have every offense projected between 21 and 27% owned. So yeah, it looks, we have the Twins with the highest top stack percentage going slightly under owned. But yeah, it looks like a really tough slate. Like ownership is pretty much where it should be. None of the offenses stand out. Yeah, I think it's a pretty difficult 2-gamer.
So do you think for a GPP, would this be a slate where it might make sense to not stack as much? I mean, you've talked about in the past, like maybe sometimes you want to take an approach where you're not full stacking, where you're shortening your stacks or just completely unstacking. Do you have any thoughts on, because it feels like a 2-game slate with no bad pitchers. This could be a slate where, like, obviously you're going to be stacking some. You only have 4 offenses to choose from. You have no choice but to stack some. You're not just running one-offs. But like, would you do your stacks any differently on a slate like this?
Yeah, so I was kind of thinking that as I talked. The first 2 things I thought of in terms of like how to be different, because if you look at the top stacks tool, you just have really efficient ownership coming into every offense. And then when you look at the top pitchers tool, pretty efficient ownership coming into the pitching as well. So there's nothing that stands out from like a team level where I'm like, oh, well, I can be different by doing this. So the first 2 things that I was kind of thinking as I talked through it were what you said, like maybe stacking a little bit less, not forcing 5-mans, maybe be more willing to go like, 3-2-2, stuff like that. On the one hand, there's the thought process that you have 4 good pitchers going, and if one of them ends up not having their best stuff, then clearly you're going to want, that's the spot you want to be in. But the other thought process would be if all 4 of them pitch like they are capable of, then you could very easily just have 2 games that, are 4-3, 3-2. And whoever, you just need the home runs from each game or the doubles from each game, whatever it may be. And there's not, a bunch jammed into one offense. They're kind of spread out. So I think that's one way to be different. And then also, like we talked about on a previous show, being willing to play maybe 2 hitters against your pitcher, 3 hitters against your pitcher, something like that, where clearly it's not optimal, but like you still have a path to success. Like let's say you roster Tanner Houck and you roster 3 Twins. Obviously, like you're putting yourself in a situation that you need a specific run out. But let's say Tanner Houck goes 5 good innings and then the bullpen gets lit up. Like you have a unique roster construction where, yes, it's not ideal, but you are still at least carving out like a path to actually winning a tournament on a 2-gamer.
Yeah, and that is the approach that I took on this day. So I just entered 20 lineups in it, just for a little bit of fun. And I guess I said 2 hitters against my pitcher is the max that I allowed. And I really debated going to smaller stacks. I still did 4-3 stacks. For the reason that you said, where I'm like, well, if any of these pitchers do struggle a little bit, like you're going to want the bats from the opposing side, obviously. So I landed on 4-3 stacks, but I really strongly thought about just like doing 4-0 or even like, I don't know, 3-3, 3-2-2, something like that. It's these are fun slates to be honest. I kind of enjoy these slates where it's kind of unclear what you should do to get different. I also think, obviously you could just like not force stacks in Fantasy Cruncher and it would probably stack up anyway, because it would stack up to some extent anyway.
Right.
Like you're generally going to get a bunch of 2-2-2-2. So I don't know. It's kind of a fun little slate here. Yeah, and Bryant Cook says you bold of me to assume that Adam was prepared for the main slate. That's a good point. Adam doesn't need to prepare. He just shows up and he just knows stuff. Do you have any other thoughts on this early slate before we jump into the main?
Nope.
Okay, well then we will jump into the main slate. This game starts at 6:35. I guess that's 5:35 Central Time, 6:35 Eastern Time. It's a 5-gamer. Of course, the biggest talking point on this slate, I think, is going to end up being Fernando Tatis being min pricier, but we'll talk about that when we get to.
Speaking of not being prepared for things,
you didn't even. I mean, that's been all the chatter all over.
Oh no, I knew DraftKings. DraftKings was coming back.
yeah, that was. Definitely they were caught off guard. That is bizarre. And it's a really interesting thing to talk about when as far as GPP, like obviously in cash games, you're going to be playing Fernando Tatis min price, but in tournaments, I think that it's an interesting conversation to have that we'll talk about that once we get to that game. All right, let me.
Madison Bumgarner designated for assignment. So.
Being put out to pasture.
Yeah. Yeah, hopefully he signs somewhere so we can keep taking bats against them. Did you see him get mad at Wilson Contreras yesterday?
I saw somebody in chat brought it up, but I did not see it.
It was just like peak mad bum stuff. Like if this is his last major league start, I'm glad he went out just being the total asshole that he's always been. Like he just middle fastball and Wilson Contreras fouls it straight back. Like huge swing, fouls it straight back. And Contreras just like made a sound, like he was mad at himself for not launching it, and Mad Bum just starts screaming at him from the mound.
He is such a dick.
Yeah, ends up walking him, and Contreras just like bat flips to the moon and goes to first base.
That's awesome. Good for Contreras. I hope that this is Mad Bum's last game. That would be a fun way to end it. All right. So we have Cincinnati at Pittsburgh. Luke Weaver on the mound for the Reds. Roansy Contreras for the Pirates. Adam, what's your level of interest in these two pitchers?
Wow. So I just saw a tweet about Mad Bum to finish on that. The Diamondbacks are eating $34 million to get rid of him.
Jesus.
The pitching here, not overly interested, but it is two bad offenses and a good pitcher's park. Roansy Contreras is talented. It hasn't really translated to a ton of success at the major league level yet, but does have good stuff. So far this year, he has struck out 27% of righties, obviously limited sample there. Going back to last year, 23.5% to righties, only 16% to lefties. Gives up a little bit of power, nothing too crazy. The Reds aren't a team that I expect to really be able to take advantage of that. Their lineup's pretty balanced. Looks like the projected lineup has 6 righties, 3 lefties. So that sets up slightly favorably for Contreras. I do think that he's playable as an SP2. Right now, pulling 40% ownership, 21% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. So pretty happy to go there. Not as interested in Luke Weaver on the other side at 5,900. He's a pitcher that has sort of always been an enigma to me. Like I've never understood why he had success with the Cardinals. He's somebody that, I get wrong a lot, but here I don't anticipate getting to too much of him. Nearly a 5-run implied total for the Pirates, and he's only $500 less than Contreras, who just looks better.
You might not be the guy to ask this, but do you know if is he related to like Jeff and Jared Weaver?
I don't think he is, but I'm not positive.
Okay. I mean, clearly like a bit younger, so maybe not. I don't know. It'd have to be a gap there.
Yeah, probably if he is, I would assume it's like a nephew or something.
Yeah. David Lynch says finished 10th in the $10,000 single entry yesterday. Thanks for your insight, gentlemen. That's awesome. Good for you, David. How many people are in that contest? 10K single entries. What does that mean? 10K up top? Is that 10K total prize? I don't
normally. Yeah.
Okay. 10K total prize. Very nice. Good question from Danny Chen. Do you have any home run calls from the early slate?
I can look.
Yeah. My prediction is 0.
Luke Weaver's Wikipedia page doesn't mention Jeff or Jared.
Okay.
Give me. And it's tough because like none of these pitchers are bad at all.
I know. We got a game in Fenway.
Yeah, but Fenway doesn't play up left-handed power as much as right-handed power, and I prefer lefties here. Give me Gallo again. That's kind of all he's done recently.
Yeah, no, I like that call. I'm gonna choose a Twins player here. Obviously, not gonna be Gallo though. I'll go with someone. Ooh, I'm gonna go with Julian. Even though he's a lefty.
That's the other one I was thinking of.
Yeah, got to go Julian in the 3-hole. That's fun. All right, we'll move back to the main slate. And oh yeah, so the bats on the. So we talked about the pitchers in this game: Roansy Contreras, Luke Weaver. Easy, great spot, but not the best pitchers. What about the bats going up against these pitchers? Obviously, nice spot for the bats, but obviously also not the best offenses. What's your level of interest in the Reds or Pirates?
Yeah, not particularly good offenses to go to. Not a great park to hit in either. If you are looking for bats here, damn it, got something in my eye. I think that the Pirates are the team that's going to look better. They're projected for 10% ownership, 10% chance of being the top stack. Cincy, 7% chance of being the top stack, only 5% ownership. So you can make the ownership case for the Reds, especially because on top of being underowned as an offense, Contreras is pulling 40%. I think if you're going to the Reds, you're looking specifically at Jonathan India, Tyler Stevenson, maybe Friedel from the left side. On the Pittsburgh side, I think it's easier to find bats you actually like. Brian Hayes, Brian Reynolds, Andrew McCutchen, clearly all strong plays, and then you get a cheap Jack Sawinski. You just get a bunch of cheap guys down toward the bottom of the order to round out the stack.
Freezy Breezy says, "Oh, woe is me. Why must I be cursed with such beauty? Falls down gracefully. Is there no one else out there as attractive as me?" Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. That's really well put, Freezy Breezy. I feel that way all the time.
That's what I say every morning when I wake up.
Exactly. It's tough. It's tough for those of us who are beautiful. Adam, can you rank the 4 sides of this game?
Contreras, Pirates, Reds, Weaver.
Okay. We now have Colorado outside of Coors Field in Philadelphia. Still a good batter's park as far as I'm aware. We have Ryan Feltner on the mound for the Rockies, Matthew Strahm for the Phillies. Starting with the pitchers, Adam, what is your level of interest?
Yeah, Strahm looks like he's going to be pulling some ownership today. We have him at 40% owned, 27% chance of being a top 2 pitcher at just $7K. He's been back and forth in his career as a starter and a reliever, not throwing a ton of pitches. Threw 67 last time out, 59 before that, 61 before that. So a little surprised at the 40% ownership, given that I don't expect him to go super deep into this game, but it is a good matchup against the Rockies outside of Coors. This is an offense that, is tough to play in Coors. So outside of Coors, obviously, you're not going to be too enamored with them. 3.5 implied run total. I do think Strahm looks good. Probably just going a little bit over-owned here. As far as Feltner goes, I have no interest.
Okay. Larry asks, is Strahm's thumb or blister okay? I would assume if he's starting the game, he's good to go. Would you make that assumption as well? I guess I haven't looked up that info, but I generally assume that if a pitcher is starting the game, that whatever, if he has like a blister, he's probably going to be fine.
Yeah. And to that point also, I guess he would have thrown more than 67 pitches last game, since he cut his finger open in warmups. But yeah, so I mean, it's still a concern how deep he's going to go into the game, but I don't think he's like hard capped at 70 or anything, so that's good. But yeah, I mean, he threw, so like he's pitching, so I assume he's fine.
Yeah. I guess what I mean is I would assume that the team is not going in like with the plan to pull him unless it does, if it breaks open or something.
Right, like that would be the risk, is that it just gets cut open again. But it's not like you're going to go into a game saying like, well, he had a blister last start, so we're going to limit him to 50 pitches today. Like, as long as the blister doesn't get cut open, he should be fine.
Yeah. Jake Swell says, Adam trying to catch up to Neil growing out his beard. Are you growing out your beard?
No, I actually trimmed it like 3 days ago.
Yeah, I was like, I hadn't noticed that it was longer than, like, I feel like you usually have about this level of facial hair. All right. What about the bats? Colorado, Philadelphia. It's in Philly, not a Coors game, but still in Philly. Pretty nice spot. What's your level of interest?
Yeah, sets up pretty nicely for the Phillies against Feltner. Just doesn't miss a lot of bats. 167 expected ISO to lefties, 211 to righties since last year. So, he's a right-handed pitcher. You expect those numbers to kind of balance out. But the point being that he hasn't been dominant against righties by any stretch. So this isn't a spot where you should be worried about who you're taking from the Phillies outside of just them being able to hit. And Stott, Turner, Schwarber, Castellanos, Marsh, Real Muto, Alec Bohm. This is a deep lineup in a good hitter's park, in a good matchup. They are somewhat expensive, only a 2.5% chance of being the top value stack. So that drives their ownership down a little bit, projected for 12 to 13% at about a 12% chance of being a top stack. Just makes them look pretty good if you can find ways to afford them. And I don't think they should be that difficult to afford, given that we have a $7K Matt Strahm, we have a $6,400 Contreras, you have a $2K Fernando Tatis. So I think it should be pretty easy to get to this team.
Okay, and then how would you rank?
Speaking of Fernando Tatis, I'm interested in Trey Turner's individual ownership here. He's still at 15%. I thought there was a chance that maybe you would be in a situation here where like you could stack the Phillies and just by including Trey Turner, you're different because he plays the same position as Tatis, but we still have him at 15%.
Bummer. I mean,
still like it is an interesting spot because you on DraftKings, like FanDuel, you can have both, but on DraftKings, if you have Turner, you cannot have Tatis. So it is a spot that you can point to immediately and say like, this lineup is different from 50% of the field,
right?
Automatically.
Yeah, and Jeffrey Battaglia had the same thought. Get Trey instead of Tatis. Yeah, it definitely is an interesting tournament play. 15% is still not like low owned. Right. On a 15-game slate, that's pretty reasonable. I'd still have a lot of interest in Trey Turner. She's School asked, I'm curious to see if Adam is playing tournament. Do you think you'll play tournaments tonight for this night slate?
No.
Yeah, you're going to be on an NBA show when it happens. So, yeah.
The only tournament I'm playing today is I have a ticket to the $500 NBA tournament on DraftKings.
Oh, nice. Wow.
I don't know exactly how I got it, but it was in my account. So
I hope I have one. I should check that. I never use my tickets. Like I always mean to.
I think they ran some sort of promo recently.
Okay. I also I feel like I don't know how to use tickets because I'll go to check my tickets and it says, I click on it and then it brings me out to the lobby and doesn't tell me where exactly to find tournaments to play my tickets. Sometimes it's obvious, but sometimes I'm like, I can't find any tournament to play this ticket in. So
I'll say the only reason I noticed I even had it today was because it had the ticket icon next to the $500 DraftKings tournament. I was like, oh nice. Yes, I can play this. Cool.
I'll check that out. Can you rank the four sides of the Rockies Phillies game?
Strahm, Phillies, Rockies, Feltner.
Okay, and we'll move on to the next game. But first, I want to tell you about our sponsor, SoRare, and let me give it a shot. I'm going to try to share my screen here. I haven't yet done this when producing. I think it's going to be pretty straightforward. All right, I think I got it right. So I've got this is SoRare. This is the tournaments page pulled up right now. I'll show you guys kind of how SoRare works. As far as I can tell for MLB, so I'm new to MLB. I've been playing the NBA stuff every day. It's a ton of fun. I don't see a salary cap here in these contests. So I'm looking at these limited contests. I bought up a bunch of cards to play in the limited contest. If there is not going to be a salary cap, I may have taken the wrong approach. I assume that they just don't have a salary cap yet in these contests, but it's something that I will be monitoring. But in general, so if I'm trying to register for a contest, you have to choose starting pitcher, relief pitcher. Here, I'll just pick some as I go so we can see them all. Yeah, I'm going to take, and I've already, I bought some of these cards yesterday. As you can see here, I'll show you the cards that I bought. I bought some studs. Spencer Strider is a relief pitcher. So if I can play Spencer Strider as a relief pitcher, that seems like a no-brainer to me. But I guess if you're not familiar with how SoRare works, so you have to buy the cards, but then you can use them for forever. So I bought these cards and I can use them in this week's contest, but I can also use them in every contest, every week going forward. I can use them in one contest. So you can only play it, one contest, but you can use it for every period of games going forward. It's really cool. So here, I'll choose DeGrom here. I think he's a no-brainer. Relief pitcher, yeah, I'm going to go with the one relief pitcher that I bought is Spencer Strider. I'll have to double check that he is actually starting this week. But in general, I think most weeks he's going to. Yes, if there's no salary cap, yeah, give me Anthony Rizzo. Maybe I'll have to buy some more studs here if there is no salary cap, but I'll have to figure out if there is. Aaron Judge, Chris Bryant, Jake Fraley. And so you have to fill out those outfield positions. Let's see, we get 3 outfielders. I believe this is middle infielder, not just catcher. Yeah, middle infielder. Okay, it says the position up here. Corner infielder, relief pitcher, starting pitcher. So that is the lineup that you fill out every week. And as you can see, you've got some cool prizes in these limited contests. You can win real money. You can win rare cards if you want to start playing some of those rare contests. That's probably how I'm going to be working my way up to some rare contests. And then, of course, you can win a number of limited cards, some of them being tier 1 limited cards. So you can get like a $200 Aaron Judge, or I don't know what's a $200 card, but you can get some really nice cards in there. So the approach that I have been taking, assuming that there is going to be a salary cap, which, I mean, they show the players last 10 average, which for the NBA at least is what you use. That's basically their salary. There's a salary cap. They have the salary is just their last 10 average score. Because they show this, I'm assuming that will be a factor at some point this season, but currently for these contests does not appear to be. But so my approach, making that assumption, is I'm buying a lot of cards of batters who play for teams that have hitters parks, with the assumption that they're going to go on periods where they go to pitchers parks. Their last 10 average probably going to drop a bit if they do a couple of series away from home, and then you're going to be able to play them at cheaper than you others would be. So I bought a bunch of Reds, a bunch of Rockies, some Yankees, thinking when they have home games, they're clearly going to their last 10 average might not reflect their projection for that period. At some point, we are going to have projections at Stochastic as well for these contests. That'll make it a little bit easier for me to make some of these decisions. But for now, just trying to play as many studs as I can. I bought some of these, and I think these are also collectible cards, as you can see here. Aaron Judge, they're all numbered to 5,000. Got number 21 out of 5,000. Have not started trying to buy jersey numbers. I don't know baseball player jersey numbers. I bought at least 1 or 2 NBA jersey numbered cards, but I have not done it for MLB yet because I don't know the jersey number unless I can see it right here on the card. But anyway, going forward, you can use these cards. I can use that that Judge that I bought. I can use it for every game week going forward. It's really, I put like $500-600 into this. It's not much of an investment to get basically all the studs that you could possibly win, and I can use these in every contest going forward. There's also these are the common cards, which they're free. When you sign up, you can choose a batch of common cards. You can actually set a lineup when you sign up for So Rare. Really cool deal going there. Here, let me find the link for you for So Rare MLB. I'm going to post this in chat. I don't have a link with our promo right now, but I'm just going to post the So Rare MLB in case any of you want to check it out. Here you go, So Rare MLB. If you do have questions, feel free to ask me as well. You can DM me on Twitter if you have any questions about So Rare. As you can probably tell, I'm still getting used to the So Rare MLB format. I love the NBA stuff. I'm sure I'm going to love this MLB stuff as I get into it. Last week, I did play a lot of it. It was just a bunch of random cards that I picked out, but going forward, I'm going to be trying to actually win this stuff, trying to compete. I think it is a really fun product. And again, if you have any questions about So Rare, do feel free to hit me up on Twitter. All right, Adam, we'll move back to some DFS here. And the next game on the slate is Dodgers and Cubs. We've got Michael Grove on the mound for the Dodgers, Jameson Taillon for the Cubs. Starting with the pitchers, what is your level of interest?
Really tough matchup for Taillon going against the Dodgers, obviously. So not overly interested in getting there. Oh, yeah. So we have him with 8% ownership, 17% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, going under-owned, but still pretty unlikely to succeed. Michael Grove, 2% ownership, 15% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. At 7,400, if you want to take some shots on him, I think that's okay. But the fact that you do have the 7K Strom, the $6,400 Contreras, and then you have a couple of actual good pitchers to get to as well, makes me think that I'm probably not going to get to too much Grove.
Okay. Bryant Cook says, Neil, ask your rep for a direct link to the contest and I'll let you use. Okay, that's good to know. If I have a ticket, I can ask for that. That is helpful.
I got an alert while you were talking So Rare that somebody fell in the water like 2 blocks from me. So
oh shit.
Hopefully they're okay, but our day's going better than at least somebody's.
What kind of water do they have there?
So it's technically a river, but it's the Baltimore Harbor.
Okay. But
technically it's the river going into the harbor.
So could be in danger there. That's sad.
Yeah. I mean, one of the alerts said that they gotten them out of the water and were administering CPR.
Oh,
then I don't see that anymore, so I don't know.
Okay.
It happens once. No, not a canal type thing. It's a giant river, / harbor. But
is it something would you have to be drunk would you have to stumble into it kind of a thing?
You'd have to be drunk or just not paying attention. There's a promenade that goes all the way around the harbor. and it's just like, like a brick walkway. So like, yeah, you'd have to be drunk or not paying attention or like screwing around with a friend or something and like lose your balance.
Ah, shit.
It happens like probably once every 6 months to once a year.
Okay, so not the most uncommon thing.
No.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time I heard about something like that around here in the Mississippi River. R. Stanley says, "Thanks, Adam, the Pope of DFS. I had a very nice day in baseball listening to your advice. How do you feel about the nickname, the Pope of DFS? I know you're a good Catholic."
Yeah, no, it's I'm cool with it. It's nicer than like 99% of the things people say. So
That is true. Somebody just asked, who is PH Hanley? That is Peter Hanley. He's a longtime stochastic sub, and he does quite well. Yeah, he is. Buddy has been crushing it. Yes, he does crush. He's been crushing it for a few years now. He actually was, I want to say, like top 20 in the Roto Grinders leaderboard, which, as you know, I think is complete bullshit, but as a metric. But I do think a very good player, and I think he was up there. Like, he is a very high volume player who's also a stochastic sub. All right. How about the bats in this Dodgers Cubs game?
Dodgers always interesting. Not the best matchup for them going against Tyone, but certainly not a great pitcher by any stretch. Since the start of last year, 181 expected ISO to lefties, only a 20% strikeout percentage for Tyone. 157 expected ISO to righties, 22% strikeout percentage. Still doesn't look like we're expecting to have Mookie Betts in the lineup, so you'll probably have James Outman leading off from the left side. Obviously, Freeman and Muncy are good. The rest of the lineup is projected to be a bit watered down. The projected lineup I'm looking at least, no Betts, no Smith. Feel like somebody else is missing too, but Jason Hayward projected to hit fifth is not ideal. So you do get, at least if this lineup's right, a bit of a watered down lineup, but there's still clearly good hitters in it.
Yeah, always going to be a tough lineup. So with that said, what is your level of interest there? I mean, do you think you'll be playing stacks from these games or one-offs?
Yeah, I mean, so we have the Dodgers with the highest top stack percentage at 17%. They're getting 18% ownership. Certainly happy to get there. There are some lower owned offenses that I like as well. On the other side, the Cubs are coming in third against Grove, 14% top stack percentage, 14% ownership. Actually, I just clicked off of Grove's page, but limited sample in the majors for him so far. He doesn't strike me as somebody that I really want to go out of my way to target. 6 starts last year, 7 total appearances, 29 in the third innings pitch. Didn't strike out a lot of guys, but he was solid at AAA in terms of strikeouts last year. 4.77 xFIP in the majors. So I think he's not great, and you certainly can go to Cubs bats, but I think he's also not a total gas can.
Okay. All right. So then how would you rank the 4 sides of this game?
Dodgers, Cubs, Tyone, Grove, I guess.
Okay. We'll move on to San Diego.
And pay attention to the Dodgers lineup just because it's never going to be good for Tyone, but it could definitely be better than usual.
Oh, is the weather bad? And I haven't checked out the weather in Chicago. That is a good call. Let me check that out. It's in Wrigley, so it is obviously makes a big difference here.
Looks like potential rain and wind blowing out.
Okay. Wind blowing out. So assuming that it does play, that the rain is not an issue, it's actually good weather for bats.
Yes. Explains why we have an 11-run total with 2 competent pitchers.
Yeah, that does explain that. All right, we'll move on to San Diego, Arizona. We have Michael Wacha on the mound for the Pods, Ryan Nelson for the D-backs. What's your level of interest in the pitchers?
Nothing really in Ryan Nelson. As far as Wacha goes, I do think he looks pretty decent. $8,600, not a great pitcher, not a bad pitcher. Diamondbacks, not a great offense, not a bad offense. They do have a 4.5 implied run total. Wacha has the 4th highest top 2 pitcher percentage at 22%, 14.5% ownership. So if you're looking at the top pitchers tool on DraftKings, the 3 pitchers ahead of him, Senga, Strahm, and Minaya, 44, 40, and 28% ownership. So you have Wacha getting at like less than half the ownership of everybody ahead of him in top 2 pitcher percentage. That makes him interesting in tournaments, but I do at the same time understand why the ownership's relatively low, because he's not as good a value as guys like Contreras or Strahm, and then he's not as good a strikeout pitcher as guys like Senga and Minaya. So I do understand why he's sort of getting squeezed, but that does give you the opportunity to get to him a little bit in tournaments and just hope for the best against Arizona.
Okay. And then I'd say this is probably the most interesting game to talk about as far as bats go, mostly because of Fernando Tatis being min-priced here. Let's talk about that first, if you don't mind. So if you were playing in a GPP, the largest field GPP, how many lineups would it take you before you played one with Tatis? Would he be in your first lineup? Would you not play him in if you're only playing 20? Like, how many lineups think you would have to play before you would play min price Tatis in a large field GPP?
I think I would probably have him in a ton of lineups.
Okay.
You can obviously make the case to just never roster 50% owned hitters, and you'll probably be fine.
Yeah.
The issue, I think, with thinking along those lines is you're basically never creating the actual optimal lineup in MLB, and you're not trying to. Like if you're stacking, you're already immediately not even attempting to create the
Yeah.
optimal lineup, because the optimal lineup is almost never going to be like a 5-man stack. So you're not building. This isn't MMA. You don't need the literal best lineup to win.
Yeah.
And Tatis being 2K opens up, doing pretty much whatever else you want in your lineup, whether it's paying up for pitching, whether it's paying up for offenses, in some cases, maybe being able to do both to some extent. So it opens up other stuff for you. And then, so like there's some versions of lineups where, like, let's say Tatis scores 0 points, right? Like, obviously that's possible. And Trey Turner scores 10. Like, he's the other, shortstop we specifically talked about so far. There's still ways the slate can play out where that 0 is almost like more useful because of the salary saved, because he's less than 1/3 the salary of Trey Turner. And Tatis is arguably the best hitter in baseball. So it's not like you're talking about like when FanDuel used to do it for like hitters against Clayton Kershaw. They'd make them like $200 and it would become like this really interesting game theory thing.
I do not remember that.
Yeah, they did it occasionally. I don't know. I can, for some reason, I remember I was living in St. Louis, so it was like 2016 season, or 2016 season probably. But it's not like you were talking Tatis against some no-name pitcher. You're talking about, random 8 hitters against Clayton Kershaw.
Yeah.
So you have obviously much more upside here with Tatis. It's just, I think I would just get to a lot of him because he is such a good hitter, and you're not, the big thing just comes back to you're not building the optimal lineup. So he doesn't have to be the best shortstop or the highest scoring shortstop. He could do nothing and still the salary helps you out, or he could just be like average and it's not like there's a lot of ways where it ends up just not mattering who your shortstop is. One of them scores 12, one scores 8, one scores 9, and it's all irrelevant. So it's, like I get the argument for sure that just never playing a 50% owned hitter, you'll be fine. But I think that argument carries more weight if like you had to build the actual nut lineup and you don't.
Yeah, no, it's one of the more interesting talking points I think we've had, because I agree. I can see both sides of the argument. Like, if you do have any other shortstop put up 20 fantasy points and Tatis puts up a literal 0, like, you're way ahead of the field if you played that other shortstop. But it's a 5-game slate. Like, there's no guarantee that any shortstop is going to do anything. Like you said, and who's the most likely to do something? It's probably Tatis, who is mid price. So it's like, man, there's a lot of good arguments for just playing a ton of Tatis.
The way I kind of think about it, so like you made the point there, if you have a shortstop that scores 20, you're way ahead of the field. Maybe. What if, I don't have a good example off the top of my head, but let's say, who's like a really expensive outfielder on this slate? I don't know if there is one.
Dodgers. We have a Dodgers. Let's see.
Okay, so no, let's use Pete Alonso. All right, just he's 5,800. He's facing a lefty, whatever. He works for this example. Your shortstop scores 20 and Tatis scores none. Let's say $5,800 Pete Alonso hits 2 home runs. If you went Trey Turner at shortstop, there's a lot lower chance that you were able to fit Pete Alonso in your lineup as well. So like there's still some percent of the time where Tatis gets destroyed by a shortstop and you're still behind the 8 ball because of what you couldn't afford elsewhere. Obviously it's not a high percentage of the time, but it's still, it exists. I kind of just think about it in terms of like, if Tatis is 50% owned and you don't play any Tatis and Tatis scores 0 points, like, cool. Obviously you're fine that you didn't play Tatis. You're still competing with those lineups that have 0. Like, it's not like you're automatically beating them. If Tatis scores 20, 25 points, which he very easily can, and you didn't play any Tatis, you're pretty much dead. Like, you're not making up those points. So it just, I think I would prefer getting to Tatis here.
And we have a projection of 12.5 for Tatis. So like that is his like median outcome is getting to 12.5 fantasy points, which you would love to have at 2,000. So yeah, I definitely understand that argument. Yeah, I was thinking probably I would lean towards not playing him in like if I'm playing one lineup, I think I lean towards not playing him, but it's definitely an interesting point
I
that there's
think
the opportunity cost. And
right. I think me like 5 years ago would have completely disagreed with me now. I do
yeah,
also think I'm a lot better at DFS now than I was 5 years
yeah,
ago. This strikes me as one of those spots where you're going to see people give all the arguments for why you don't play Tatis, blah blah blah, and then you're going to go back and you're going to go into Fantasy Cruncher in the morning and you're going to look at whoever you
who the
consider
pros
good at
played. Yep.
MLB, and it's just going to be like Fernando Tatis jammed everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it's a interesting spot. Yeah, I'm probably going to be playing a good amount of Fernando Tatis in GPPs. But it's definitely an interesting talking point because I understand both sides. Like,
Right.
I think that there have been probably a couple years ago, I would have done the same thing. I would have just X them out of my player pool. Probably not in a 150 set. Like there was never a time where I'm playing 150 where I'm taking that big of a risk. Maybe there have, but not in MLB. I don't think I've done that.
Yeah. And also, I mean, the ownership level matters too. You said the other day that we don't talk a lot about the top batters tool, and you're right. Like I don't even have it pulled up in front of me, but 46% almost seems kind of low. Like not again, not in the sense that he's greater than 46% to be the top shortstop, but when you consider everything else that your lineup gets, it almost seems low. Like if you told me this number was 65, 70%, I think there I would start to say like, okay, like that's a lot. But you're basically saying half the field is playing like again, you could make the case that he's the best hitter in baseball. I kind of forgot how good he was. Like I knew he was really, really good. But Greg said the other day he was betting him for MVP, and my immediate reaction was like, dude, he's the third best player on his team behind Machado and Soto. And a couple people, kind of gave me shit for it on Twitter. So I actually pulled up FanGraphs and was looking and was like, unless he comes back to earth, not being on steroids and stuff, like he's better than Soto and Machado, and very easily you could make a case is the best hitter in baseball at minimum salary. So it's at 50%, it's like, yeah, 50% is a lot. But if you kind of think about it in terms of half of the field isn't playing the best hitter in baseball at 2K and
Right.
half of them are, I think I prefer being on the side that is.
Yeah, and that makes sense. Yeah, 1-2 says avoiding chalk for the sake of avoiding chalk seems very Sean V-ish. I mean, I agree you shouldn't avoid chalk for the sake of avoiding chalk, but it's certainly something that you need to be factoring in.
Right.
I don't think of Sean V as being somebody who avoids chalk. Maybe I don't pay enough attention. Maybe I pay the right amount of attention to Sean V. Yeah. Ken Roddy says on DK, if you choose Tatis, you are out on Turner. Is that okay? Yes, I would say that is okay. I mean, that's yeah. And then Sotek says, would you play Tatis on FanDuel at 4,500? I assume the answer is yes. I mean, it's obviously it's a totally different conversation because the ownership is going to be lower. The price is still like relatively like low on Tatis at 4,500 on FanDuel. So I guess my answer would still be yes.
Yeah, I mean, 4,500 on FanDuel is just like, yeah, Fernando Tatis is really good. He's a good play.
Right.
It's not like if Fernando Tatis were 50% owned, then yeah, no, you just find other spots to go to. But that's just like a normal play. It's like saying, would you play Aaron Judge at 4,500? Yes.
Yeah.
But 2K on DraftKings is just the point that you're really harping on because it's such an egregious mispricing. And the other thing too, like it's one spot in your lineup.
Right.
It's different than, and we've talked about this a lot. It's different than when you have like a stack that's 25% owned across the board and 5 out of your 10 roster spots are going to be 25+% owned. It's one hitter. Like you can find a million different things to do that are, different. People are quoting his minor league stats. Yeah, he did tear up the minors. Do keep in mind it's the PCL. That's like hitting on the moon.
At least shows that he's, healthy, ready to go. But yeah, not
particularly. And somebody that, was kind of pushing back on my take that he was worse than Soto and Machado on Twitter had the good point too, that he'd been playing with a shoulder injury for years, basically since he came up, and he finally got that fixed. So like if there's obviously the question mark of like, how much did the PEDs impact him? But if he's relatively the same player without them, there's actually a case you could make that he's in better shape now than when he was taking them.
Yeah, I suppose there's that case. And then Ken clarified. I mean, he has 100%. I have 100% Tatis. Yeah, I mean, I think that's fine. It's just it's a matter of risk tolerance to some extent, and he's also min price, so like the risk isn't that great if you play him in every lineup, even if you are 150 max. Like if you 150 max and play Tatis in every lineup and he puts up a 0, like you're still going to cash some lineups probably, right? Would you agree that it's fine? Would you think somebody's a fish if you went and looked at Fantasy Cruncher tomorrow? If you looked at lineup study and you saw that somebody played 150 lineups and every single one of them had Tatis in it, would you think that they're a fish based on that alone?
No, I think, and I mean, obviously, like there's, I'm sure you can make good lineups either way. I would expect if I looked at somebody's Fantasy Cruncher tomorrow, and if I looked at if I don't know who they are, and I look at one person that has 100% Tatis and one person that has 0, I would assume the person with 100 is a better player.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I don't know what I would think. That's to me, that's a tough question because I think that I think there are valid arguments on both sides of the Tatis argument. The way I would play it is neither of those. I would probably have close to the field Tatis. I don't actually know.
My guess is I would come in like 50 to 65%.
Yeah, a little bit above the field. That makes sense as well.
And I mean, the other thing, we mentioned Trey Turner. This is actually a good shortstop slate, which is kind of weird since there's only 5 games. But not only do you have Turner, you have Swanson, you have why is I was looking at our top batters tool, but it doesn't look like it has the right pitchers loaded, but it has the right team. So anyway, you have Swanson, you have Bogarts from Tatis's team. That's a really, really interesting spot. We mentioned, Trey Turner is being somebody that's just going to naturally get lower ownership because of Tatis. Xander Bogaerts is getting 1/5 the ownership of Tatis.
Yeah.
That to me is a really, really interesting tournament spot because you can stack the Padres and go Bogaerts over Tatis, and you're very different immediately.
Right.
But yes, you have him on the slate. You have Lindor on the slate. There is opportunity cost at shortstop today, but still, like in the top batters tool, we have Tatis with about a 23 or 24% chance of being the highest scoring shortstop on DraftKings. Not factoring in salary, anything, just most fantasy points. We have him with about a 50% chance of being the top value at shortstop. So even like outside of the salary, he is the best shortstop play, just in terms of fantasy production. So yeah, it's like my guess is if I were playing 150 lineups, I'd probably be, like I said, like 50 to 65% somewhere in there.
Yeah, and it is like somewhat worth noting that Tatis is the only eligible $2,000 shortstop. So like there are scenarios where if you're using your full salary and you have Tatis in there, even if he does nothing, like some, and I guess we've already talked about, you don't need to have the actual optimal lineup anyway, so it's not as applicable. But sometimes I like to see like there are lineups you can make with Tatis that you can't make with any other shortstop because he is the only $2,000 eligible shortstop. I guess you could use like a backup or something who maybe will pinch hit and get 3 points, but we don't really factor that in. So generally, like even if he does nothing, he's the only player at his price point.
Yeah, and also as kind of an aside to that, somebody asked us in chat the other day about leaving salary on the table in MLB, and we had said that we didn't mind doing it, but that you did want to sort of make sure that you were doing it in a way where you weren't just like randomly playing some terrible $2,600 hitter over like Aaron Judge. Not that you're going out of your way to leave salary today, but I would expect that you just end up naturally leaving less than you normally do, because there's going to be a bunch of lineups where you have a 5-man stack, you have the pitching you want, and then you're just playing Fernando Tatis over somebody else because he's better than everybody else.
Yeah. Jenna Sandy says, so he's a 50% owned one-off. Yeah, it is an interesting spot with one pitcher. Would you do anything differently in Fantasy Cruncher to account for Tatis being 2,000? Like, do you think you change your stacks at all? If you were going to play 150 GPP lineups, do you think you would change your stack settings at all to account for Tatis so that like you maybe will get him in more lineups?
I don't think so. I think I would just kind of let it. I would do what I normally do. Like he's just going to project, like he projects better than all the shortstops, so he's still just going to show up a ton. I just expect that, like, whereas I'd said the other day that typically my lineups just end up being between 49K and 50K on DraftKings. Sometimes I'll have something around like 48.4, 48.5. I would just expect that today I'm getting more of those like 48.4, 48.5 lineups, maybe like 48K, and it just ends up being something where it's like, well, I could have played Trey Turner, but Fernando Tatis project better anyway, so I played Tatis. It's a really weird spot where like you could literally build a lineup with Trey Turner and then save and then just come in 4,300 below the cap and have a higher projected lineup.
Yeah, that is a very, very interesting spot today in general. Yeah, I guess the only way you would like need to do something different is if you build out your stacks typically where you're using all 8 roster spots within 2 stacks or like within your stacks.
Right.
Then you might want to change something a little bit to allow for more Tatis if you're like,
Oh, right. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Like, so typically when I build, I just build like X number of 5-3, 5-2, 5X, 4-3, 4-4, whatever.
okay,
If you're somebody that just always plays 5-3 or 4-4 or whatever, I would consider not being as strict with that today.
yeah, okay. All right, so we've talked enough about Tatis. We'll get back to the talking in generalities about the pods, D-backs. What's your level of interest in bats in general? You can factor in Tatis as much as you want here.
Yeah, so I mean, interested in the Padres in general as well. 16% top stack percentage, 18.5% aggregate ownership. Kind of surprised that aggregate ownership number isn't higher given how popular Tatis is. But Soto and Machado are 21 to 25%. Nobody else is projected above 12% here. That's Cronenworth, Carpenter, and Bogarts are at 10%. And, we talked about it already, but you can also just very easily make a contrarian Padres stack by playing Xander Bogaerts over Fernando Tatis. Tatis is better than Bogarts, but Bogarts is still pretty damn good and getting 1/5 the ownership. So the Padres do look interesting against an unproven pitcher in Nelson. He hasn't been bad in a very limited sample in the majors at limiting power, but doesn't get a lot of strikeouts. And then clearly you have a Padres team that does have a lot of power, 5.4 implied run total here. So I do like getting into the Padres quite a bit.
How about the D-backs? Any interest there?
Yeah, some, because Waka is going to get some ownership. We talked about him being lower owned than the other quote unquote good pitchers on the slate. But since the start of last year, he's still given up a 215 expected ISO to righties, 188 to lefties, middle of the road, average-ish strikeout stuff. So you have Ketel Marte, you have Carroll. Both of those guys obviously have stolen base upside in addition to being good hitters. Rojas has stolen base upside as well. Christian Walker, plenty of power from the right side, can do damage against Waka, who's never been particularly good at limiting it against righties. Lourdes Gurriel, same thing. You have a cheap top prospect catcher and Gabby Moreno that you can get to. Alec Thomas is a highly regarded prospect. Pavin Smith has some ownership. So this is a team that has a deep lineup in terms of power. I really like 1 through 5, Rojas, Marte, Carroll, Walker, Gurriel. But even if you're mixing in some of these lower owned guys, I think they make sense also. In the top stacks tool, we have Arizona, middle of the pack, 7.5% chance to be in the top stack, about 10% ownership. So as a whole, going a little bit overowned, but that's also driven in part by 20% ownership coming into Carroll, 16% to Moreno. Then it's 12% Walker, 9 to 10% Rojas and Marte. Everybody else less than that. So there are definitely ways that you can just build pretty low owned Arizona stacks.
Okay. And then can you rank the 4 sides of this game?
Padres, Diamondbacks, Waka, and Nelson.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Padres. Jeffrey Battaglia says, I'm fading Tatis and hoping he does nothing. Ran Fantasy Cruncher, and the projection shows 3 less with lower ownership. So
I'm guessing he's saying that he built a lineup that projects for 3 less points in his lower owned, which, yeah, good. Fine.
Yeah, I have no issue with fading Tatis. I think that, I don't think that there's a wrong answer necessarily to what you're doing with Tatis. I think that there will be some sharp players who do fade Tatis, I think, and there will be others who do jam him in. And I think as you were saying, probably there will be more sharp players who actually have a lot of Tatis, but it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I guess as a reminder, I am kind of speculating on what my lineups would look like. I haven't built them. Like, there is some chance that I wouldn't have him, and that I would be like, oh, I guess I was wrong in like what I thought. But it's just like I keep coming back to, like, I think there is more risk, a lot more risk in not playing him, and not really that much more upside just because of how baseball works. But again, I guess don't take my opinion on him as gospel in terms of like, I ran my process already and this is what I would definitely be doing. Generally, I know what I'm gonna get because I've built out all of my stuff to do what I wanted to do. I fully expect I'd be getting a lot of him, but yeah. And Dave Carroll said Tatis the cash game lock. Yeah, if you play somebody in cash games on DraftKings that doesn't have Tatis, do everything you can to play as much money against them in the future as possible.
Yep, that is your target. All right. Well, we only have one more game. Actually, before we talk about this last game, I should tell you guys that we do have a great offer for new users on every Stokastic product. You've heard us talking a lot about the top pitchers tool, the top stacks tool, the top batters tool. You can get all of these tools for 50% off right now using promo code SCORE when you sign up, or you can use the link in the description of this video. Just click the link in the description, use promo code SCORE. You will get, and you can choose your package. It doesn't have to be just MLB. You can choose just MLB if that's all you're playing, or you can choose a package that includes every sport that we have at Stokastic. And you can choose for a week, for a month, whatever level of commitment you want to make. You can get 50% off using promo code SCORE or just using the link in the description of this video. You'll get access to all of our great tools that we've talked about: ownership projections, lineup generator projections, etc., all this great stuff that we have that are being run by Alex Shanzon, Steve Buzzard, some of the best players in the game. So make sure you take advantage of that. If you are a new user wanting to try out Stokastic, highly recommend taking advantage of that kind of offer. All right, Adam, final game of the slate. And we're 3 minutes away from noon. I really thought this was going to be like a half-hour show. We found ways to fill this time for East Coast elitist. We've got the Mets at the Giants. Kodai Senga on the mound for the Mets, Sean Manaea on the mound for the Giants. Starting with the pitchers, what's your level of interest?
Very high. We don't have a ton of good pitching on this slate, and neither of these guys are in ideal spots, but this is a favorable pitcher's park. It's supposed to be like 60 degrees as well. Kodai Senga has shown good strikeout stuff so far. 32% strikeout percentage to lefties, 28.5 to righties. Clearly a limited sample in his first season in the majors, but he projects as the top scoring pitcher on the main slate. Looks good at 10-3. Shouldn't be difficult to get to because you have cheap SP2s that you can use. You have a free Fernando Tatis that you can use. You have plenty of other hitting value as well. So 44% projected ownership on DraftKings, 34% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, 12% projected ownership on FanDuel, 14% chance of being the top scoring pitcher. So that's actually a pretty interesting tournament spot there. He is 11K, so it's a little bit more difficult to get to him. You don't have the 2K Tatis piece. You can't use an SP2 to balance out the salary. So I get why the ownership's relatively low, but still the highest chance of being the top scoring pitcher. And he's getting less than half the ownership of Roansy Contreras, less than half the ownership of Sean Manaea, basically the same ownership as Matt Strahm. Makes him a really interesting tournament play there. On DraftKings, I think he's just a good play in any format. On the other side, really, I think it's a pretty big boom or bust spot for Sean Manaea. And that's kind of who he's been as a pitcher as well. He gives up power, but he does have solid strikeout stuff also. Since the start of last year, 23.7% strikeout percentage, but also allowing 1.66 home runs per 9. If you look at his very limited sample so far this year, he has struck out 23% of righties, 42% of lefties, but he's also allowed a 222 or a 220 expected ISO to righties, over 500 to lefties. Very, very, only a few batters there. But point being, like, he continues to give up power and strike guys out. Since last year, 24.4% K percentage to righties, 185 expected ISO, 223 actual ISO. This park does mitigate power, so I think it moves the needle in Manaea's favor. And I do think he's a good pitcher play here on DraftKings. We have him pulling 28% ownership at 9,900. Mentioned similar ownership on FanDuel at 8,600. But it does also make me interested in getting to some Mets bats because they do still have plenty of power. It's not a great matchup. You just kind of need to overcome the not favorable hitting conditions.
Okay. So we'll talk about. I want to just Terry Florida Boy 420 says East Coast till today. First of all, I hope you're enjoying what I imagine is your favorite holiday of the year. Hope you're having a great 420, Terry. Adam, do you have any plans on this 420?
No, I don't smoke.
Oh, you don't smoke?
Which
okay.
I think shocks a lot of people, but no.
Yeah, that is a little bit surprising to me. I'm not going to lie. I'll probably drink some THC drinks, which are legal here in Minnesota. I sometimes replace alcohol with just drinking THC. But yeah, hope you are enjoying it. Also, East Coast. So I know that Florida is on the East Coast, but when I'm talking about the East Coast, I don't usually think about Florida in that because Florida to me is like its own entity. Like
we don't include Florida either.
Yeah, you don't include Florida. I'm sorry, Terry Florida Boy. And if maybe Terry Florida Boy is not, maybe that's not actually Florida Boy. That's how I read his name there. But yeah, it's I know that it's on the East Coast, so you are technically correct, but it's not something that I ever think of when I'm thinking about the East Coast. All right. So you said you have some level of interest in the bats. Overall, what's your level of interest in the bats in this game?
I mean, it's a tough spot for both teams. Neither one looks very good. The Mets are fourth from the bottom in top stack percentage. Giants are second from the bottom. It's more so interest in the Mets just because Mania does give up power and the Mets do have it. Pete Alonso is expensive, but clearly has power. Mark Canha, Lindor, Pham, Escobar, like these guys are all going to be hitting from the right side. It does help Mania that you know, Nimmo's left-handed, McNeil's left-handed, so you are mitigating those guys a bit. Brett Beatty's left-handed, but still plenty of power from a decent part of the Mets order. So not my favorite stack here, but they are projected to go a little bit under owned, and they are facing a popular pitcher. I think it's more difficult for me to get to the Giants against Senga. I just, you know, better pitcher, lower implied run total, not as many bats I can point to in the Giants lineup that I really like either.
Okay. And then how would you rank the four sides of this one?
Senga, Mania, Mets, Giants.
Okay. Well, we've gotten through all of the games. So Adam, if you're playing in a 3 entry, who do you think it would be the 3 different stacks that you go to?
Padres, Cubs, Phils.
Okay. And then pitchers, top 3 pitchers for you.
Senga, Strom, Contreras.
Okay. Well, I don't think we have any other questions that I'm missing here. People very excited for 420. I hope you all enjoy your 420. I do want to say, somebody said, 1-2 says, Adam saying he doesn't get high or smoke is probably the funniest running bit of all time. Did I just miss? Is this a bit that I am not a part of, that I'm not aware
of?
It's
just something that a lot
people
of
just assume that it's a bit.
No, I could actually see like me moving that direction because like I'm just tired of drinking and feeling like shit and all that stuff. But no, I've smoked weed twice ever. Both times I think were in college and I was already extremely drunk, so like nothing even happened. But yeah, no, that's it.
Yeah, I rarely smoke these days. I mean, I've never been one to own my own weed. Like I don't buy weed. I just have it. I consume it when other people offer it up typically, until now we have it's legal in Minnesota to buy up to 5 milligrams at a time. So now as you might know, I don't know if I've told you this, Adam, but I have a New Year's resolution that involves I have to run a mile for every alcoholic beverage that I consume. Okay. So that's like one beer. And if it's like if I'm at home and it's like I'm having a bourbon, I have to actually pour it into a shot glass to have one bourbon for one shot essentially. So I have that going on, but I cheat on it by just drinking THC drinks instead of alcoholic beverages. They are 0 calories. So like it's, you know, the purpose for me is mostly losing weight. So it is actually, it's not really cheating because it is 0 calories, but yeah, now I've been pretty regularly drinking some THC drinks at night, which I really enjoy. They're actually pretty good tasting. So highly recommend. Anyway, that's the perfect way to end the show, talking about some THC. Thank you guys. First, Adam, do you have any final thoughts?
Do you have any home run picks?
Oh yeah. We got to do home run picks. You were right. Let's do it. Yeah, if you want to give yours first, I don't spend a lot of time on my home run picks in case that's not obvious.
Yeah, okay, I'll take Fernando Tatis.
I like it. I mean, it's $2,000, so obviously legal. All right, I'm gonna go with. I feel like Freddie Freeman probably cheating. I think I'm gonna go with somebody in Wrigley.
I don't think anybody on this slate's cheating. Like, there's not total gas can pitchers. There's not a Coors game.
I mean, if I can take Freddie Freeman, yeah, I'll take Freddie Freeman.
I just took Tatis, so.
That is true. Yeah, that's fair. All right. Well, that is going to do it, guys. If you have not yet hit that like button, please do hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification button so you can get alerts when our shows go live. Really appreciate you guys hanging out with us. And of course, I'll be on a show in 25 minutes talking some So Rare with Greg, I believe. And then Adam and I will both be on. I think I'm on Live Before Lock tonight. I'm sure Adam will be on Deeper Dive. So if you're playing some NBA tonight, you can catch us there as well. But we will catch you guys later.